All right, welcome in, everyone. Kicking off another deep dive here. And today we're looking at a pretty fascinating shift.
Yeah.
That's happening out there in the world. And it's really in two sectors that you wouldn't necessarily think of as like cutting-edge tech hubs, right?
Right.
We're talking banking and insurance.
Yeah.
Like big, traditional industries.
Yeah.
And we've got a really interesting article here from UDS Corporate.
Okay.
That's looking specifically at digital workplaces.
Yeah.
In banking and insurance.
Interesting.
And we're also going to be pulling in some insights from a report by Alejandro Guerra Gutierrez, who really goes deep on digital workplace solutions, specifically for the banking sector. So our goal today is to help everyone listening really understand why this whole move toward digital workplaces, it's not just like some passing trend,
Right.
It's becoming a fundamental necessity for these banks and these insurance companies to really adapt and thrive. And we're going to cut through the jargon, try to avoid getting too technical.
Yeah.
And really just focus on the core drivers behind this whole transformation and the actual solutions that are being adopted out there in the wild.
Perfect. Love it.
So I mean, when you think about it, right? Banking and insurance, they're kind of known for being a little
traditional.
Yeah, a little stuck in their ways, right?
Yeah.
But under the surface, there's this massive technological evolution happening.
Yeah.
And it's not just about, shiny apps for customers to use on their phones, right?
Right.
This is a much deeper change in the way these organizations actually operate, especially when it comes to the really important things like protecting sensitive information, right?
Of course.
Keeping that data secure and navigating this increasingly
complicated web of regulation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And probably most importantly, making sure that their core services are always available. I mean, talk about a high wire act, right?
Absolutely. And I think when you connect that to the bigger picture, what you realize is that in finance and insurance, trust isn't just important, it's everything.
Right.
It's the foundation. Any mistake, any slip up, any security breach can have a ripple effect.
Yeah.
That impacts their bottom line and their reputation. So this isn't just about, chasing the newest gadget. It's about survival.
Yeah.
And maintaining that hard-earned trust that they've built up. And the article really nails it when it highlights those two pressures, security and regulatory compliance, as the key drivers of this change.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right about that continuous availability, because in this world, people expect to access
24/7. Their banking, their insurance information.
Yeah, whenever they want, wherever they are.
Yeah.
So how do they make all of that happen?
Right.
That's where the digital workplace comes in. So imagine a workspace that isn't tied to a physical location. It's completely digital. It's secure. It's adaptable.
And it's always on. So how does this kind of environment specifically address those challenges that we were talking about in banking and insurance?
Well, it's fascinating how directly a digital workplace tackles those needs. When you think about security, a well-designed digital workplace will have the most advanced protocols. To safeguard all of that sensitive financial and personal data, it goes way beyond just passwords. We're talking layered security, encryption, constant monitoring. And then that flexibility aspect is also key, because employees can work securely from anywhere, on any device, which is pretty much the norm nowadays.
Yeah.
So that 24/7 accessibility, combined with a centralized management system, means operations can continue without a hitch. And IT teams have a much clearer picture of what's going on.
Now, the article mentions DORARA, the Digital Operational Resilience Act.
Right.
So for anyone who's hearing that for the first time, what's DORARA all about and why is it such a big deal in this conversation?
That's a really good point, because it raises the issue of the external pressures that these industries are facing. DORA is a great example of regulators worldwide taking a closer look at the technology behind these institutions. The core focus is on cybersecurity and making sure that these companies can withstand, respond to, and bounce back from any kind of tech disruption or threat. It's about building a resilient framework from the ground up. And the article really stresses that digital workplaces aren't just convenient, they're essential for organizations to meet these increasingly strict demands. This isn't just about checking boxes on a compliance list. This is about building a strong foundation to protect data and minimize the impact of any potential incidents.
So it sounds like DORA and regulations like it are really kind of forcing the issue, pushing these companies to embrace these more robust digital infrastructures.
Yeah.
And the digital workplace is a key piece of making that happen. Now, Alejandro Guerra Gutierrez's report offers some valuable insights into what to actually look for when choosing the right technology for this whole digital transformation. So what are some of the really critical things that banks and insurance companies need to consider when they're making those choices?
Well, according to the report, a few things really rise to the top. The most important, I think, is long-term sustainability.
Okay.
This isn't a short-term investment. It needs to be viable and adaptable for years to come.
Right.
Scalability is another huge one because the solution needs to grow as the organization grows. And then integration with their existing infrastructure.
Yeah.
I mean, banks and insurance companies, they have these huge legacy systems.
Right.
You can't just rip and replace everything. The new solution has to play nice with the investments they've already made. And then, of course, compliance with all those cybersecurity regulations is essential.
Yep.
Simplified administration is really important to keep things running smoothly and keep those costs down. And at the end of the day, it all has to make financial sense.
Right. It has to be a good investment.
Exactly. It's a balancing act between what they need right now and their long-term goals.
It's like you can't just hit the reset button on decades of IT infrastructure.
You got to be smart about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the article we started with really focuses on UDS Corporate by Virtual Cable. And they present it as a really prime example of this smart digital workplace solution.
Yeah.
So in a nutshell, what is UDS Corporate and how does it actually tackle these challenges that we've been talking about?
So UDS Corporate, it's built on their UDS Enterprise platform, and it takes this comprehensive approach through what's called desktop application and remote access virtualization.
Okay.
Think of it as creating these secure virtual versions of desktops and apps that employees can access from anywhere, on any device, while still adhering to all those security protocols and regulations. This is particularly valuable for banks and insurance companies with multiple branches or a lot of remote workers. And by centralizing management of these virtual workspaces, UDS Corporate significantly reduces the attack surface for cyber threats and minimizes the risk of data breaches. It's about creating that stable, controlled, trustworthy environment.
Yeah.
Which, as we talked about, is absolutely essential for maintaining customer confidence.
Yeah, especially in that really competitive financial landscape.
Exactly.
So they're getting that secure and consistent access, no matter where they are.
Right.
And it's all under one secure umbrella.
Right.
Now, the article highlights some key ways that UDS Corporate stands out from other solutions out there. So what are some of those things that really make it different?
Well, a couple of things I think are really important. First, the ease of integration with existing IT infrastructure.
Yeah.
That's a big one because it allows for a smoother transition without causing a ton of disruption.
Right.
And then they have that flexible subscription-based model, which can be much easier on the budget than a huge upfront cost.
Makes sense.
And the platform is designed for optimized resource consumption, which means it can help reduce operating costs without sacrificing security or performance. Plus, it has an open, scalable architecture, which ensures that it can adapt to the evolving needs of the organization. And compatibility with multiple platforms prevents that dreaded vendor lock-in, gives them more flexibility and control in the long run.
So they've really prioritized adaptability, cost effectiveness, and future-proofing their solution.
Absolutely.
Now we get to hear directly from Fernando Feliu, the Executive Managing Director of Virtual Cable. What's his take on why solutions like this are so critical right now?
He really emphasizes the strategic importance of digital resilience and virtualized workspaces, like UDS Corporate. He points out that in today's environment, digital resilience is no longer an option. It's a must-have. Virtualizing the workspace becomes absolutely fundamental, and he sees this as a direct link to helping companies comply with regulations like DORA, ensure their operations can continue without interruption, and protect that customer data, which is paramount.
Yeah, it's not just about implementing tech. It's about building a secure, reliable, resilient foundation. For the entire business.
Exactly.
So it all comes back to those core drivers we started with.
It always does.
Right.
Yeah.
Security, regulatory compliance, and that continuous uptime. You got to have it.
Yeah.
So just to kind of bring it home for everybody listening, what are some of the real-world benefits that banks and insurance companies can actually expect to see when they implement solutions like UDS Corporate?
Well, I think the benefits are pretty significant. First off, you're going to see a much stronger security posture
Right.
and improved system availability. That means a lower risk of data breaches and costly downtime.
Right, right,
Then there's the centralized management,
right.
which makes IT's job a lot easier, especially for companies with lots of branches or remote teams.
Yeah.
It enables secure remote access for employees, which means more flexibility and better business continuity.
Right.
And it reduces that overall attack surface by securing those access points. And it strengthens their recovery capabilities
Okay.
so they can respond faster and more effectively to any interruptions.
So they're more resilient,
Yeah.
more efficient,
Yeah.
and overall just a more trustworthy organization,
Yeah,
especially in this high-stakes environment.
exactly.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, the main takeaway is clear, right? Digital workplaces,
Yeah.
like the ones we've been talking about with UDS Corporate, they're not some futuristic concept anymore for
Right.
banks and insurance companies. They're a core part
Yeah.
of navigating the complexities
Yep.
of security threats, regulations, and that constant demand for always-on services.
Absolutely.
They have a practical way to achieve greater resilience,
Yep.
better security, and some serious operational efficiencies.
And that leads us to a final thought for everyone. Given that we see this constant increase in how sophisticated cyber threats are becoming and how regulations are constantly evolving, how do you think these innovations in digital workplace technology are going to further revolutionize how work is done
Yeah,
and how security is maintained in these critical industries in the years to come?
that's a great question.
What challenges and opportunities might pop up
Yeah.
as this digital evolution continues? It's definitely a space to keep an eye on.
For sure. All right, well, thanks for diving in with us, everyone,
Thanks for having me.
and we'll catch you on the next one.